Chapter 20 of Life in a Thousand Worlds. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Leonie Rose. Life in a Thousand Worlds by William Shuler Harris. Chapter 20. Brief. One of the medium-sized worlds that revolve around Alcyone sustains the shortest-lived human beings of our universe. It is seldom that any of the creatures reach more than 4 years of age according to our standards of time. They are nearly as large as we, and relatively much lighter in weight. All the periods of physical growth are correspondingly decreased. Children walk 4 or 5 weeks after birth, and are capable of receiving regular instruction at the age of 5 months. Strange as it may seem, this sphere, which for convenience we will call brief, revolves very slowly on its axis, so that our world makes 15 times as many revolutions as this planet. It requires but little arithmetic to figure out that the people of brief do not see the sunrise very often. When it does appear in the morning sky, all the public signals blow, and the people appear in one or another of their places of worship. This beautiful custom has been in practice for over 3,000 years. The worship is not sun worship, but a genuine service of thanksgiving to Him who ruleth over the sun and supplies it with fuel to burn. It appears that on all worlds everything is regulated in accordance with the length of human life. On this world of brief, all vegetables mature in periods so short that one marvels when he hears it. Think of cereals reaching maturity in 7 or 8 of our days, or during one day of brief. Early in the morning, certain crops are planted and are harvested at night. 2 or more days are required for maturing other crops. Actually, the people of brief raise their crops with less labor than is required amongst us. If you were permitted to look upon the public and private life of this incredible world, your first sensation would be dizziness, not to mention the weirdness of all sights that would confront you at every turn. People would seem to be in a mad rush, and it would appear that all business is done with insane rapidity. Furrows of care and trouble begin to deepen on the faces of these briefites as they approach an age of what we would call 3 years, and if by lease of strength they pass on toward an age of 4 years, it is but an evidence of their exceptional vitality. It seems to be true that the experiences of a long life of 60 or 80 years is crowded into a narrow compass of 4 years by a miracle of spheres not comprehended by finite minds. No doubt a detailed description of this whirling and dashing life would be of interest to us slow, deliberate creatures, but I can give only a passing glimpse. Journalism. Things happen in such quick succession that the news is hustled out at all hours of the day and night, not on sheets of paper, but through automatic news receivers, machines somewhat akin to our telegraph instruments. The state supplies each home with an automatic news receiver. Thus a record is kept in each home of all messages received so that they can be read at leisure. To speak in a manner more easily understood, I will say that the news is telegraphed to each home as soon as possible after the events transpire. But compared to our customs, the news is very scarce. There being no competition, no time or space is required for sensational trash. Thus, if nothing of importance occurs, nothing need be transmitted. The official news censors decide as to the relative importance of occurrences. There need not be a certain amount of news telegraphed each hour. The government verifies, as much as possible, all reports before they are transmitted. There are indeed some advantages in the government being in constant touch with each home under its care. The advertising department pays nearly all expenses of this whole system of journalism. Announcements for private gain are paid at a regular rate. It costs more to advertise at certain periods than at other times, all regulated by the customs of the people. Under these regulations, everybody receives the news, and only the essential news, except advertisements which must come in batches at certain intervals. Of course, people take their choice as to reading advertisements. Their footwear. The soles of the feet of these Briefites are composed of a substance most nearly resembling hoof material. They never think of covering the feet under any change of climate. If one of the Briefites were to step upon the shores of our rugged earth and see the cotton or wool and leather that lies around our feet, it would appear to him as the most ridiculous thing imaginable, and no doubt his shapely feet of ivory cast would be of more than passing interest to us. Their raiment. Their raiment is altogether after new models. Neither the men, women, nor children seem to seek this means for self-beautifying. They seem to think that beauty of character has a radiance more to be desired than the flash of opals or the luster of silks. Their garments partake of the loose flowing order. For instance, a strong fabric of chosen shade is fastened at the neck, hip, knee, and ankle, and lies carelessly over the parts between. The females never graduated to the corset degree, and while they do not cut a scientific figure, yet they surely develop a more ruddy waist after the model intended by the designer of the body. Transportation. The methods of traveling are so contrary to our conceptions and practices that I almost forbear to attempt any description. Yet I was entertained and instructed as I witnessed the moving of humanity along the street of a busy city. Have you ever noticed how quarters of beef are carried from a car to an elevator or refrigerator on steel rods connected with wheels running in a groove or on a specially prepared track? In a city of Brief, overhead tracks after such an order run along all business streets and certain residence streets. Spare me a detailed description of this peculiar traveling system. Suffice it to say that a person, in lightning rapidity of motion, rushes from a store, springs upon a passing seat, and is hurled away by the power of an overhead cable system. When an exchange of seats is necessary, it is all done so easily and so quickly that you would wonder why we tolerate trolley cars. In traveling from city to city, a system is in use that I will call the toboggan slide system, although the cars run on wheels. The car is raised in a shaft about 100 feet, and then by gravity it dashes 2 or more miles according to the lay of the land traversed. Then another rise more or less than 100 feet is experienced, and then another wild dash. I have no words of praise for this system, although the Briefites can cover considerable territory in an hour. They look upon this gravity system as a wonderful achievement, for it has not been in operation for more than 300 years. The power of steam has never been utilized. No genius of all this active world of Brief ever conceived the idea that almost unlimited power lies wrapped up in thin vapory water. But they have discovered what we would call gaseous oil, and have learned to put it to work, so that it is the main force employed in hoisting and all other purposes where power is required. Nothing like a traveling locomotive has ever been made, although I learned that a bright wizard was experimenting, and that he prophesied great changes when his gas-propelled vehicle was perfected. Think of how much value an ordinary citizen of our world would be to these Briefites if he could step upon their world and communicate with them concerning the magic wonders of steam and the manner of constructing stationary and movable engines, to say nothing of the hidden wonders of electricity. Quadrupeds that take the place of our horses are used for drayage, although nothing except the two-wheeled class of vehicles was ever used until some 87 years ago. Public highways. These interesting people excel us in their style and manner of home building, fencing, and making public highways. We are heathenish in our progress along the line of road making especially. In all my vast journey among the worlds, I found only a few, comparatively, whereon the roads were inferior to ours. In the world of Brief, the state prescribes the manner of public highways, and each citizen must contribute his share to their creation and maintenance. These Briefites excel us in more than a score of ways. They are much purer in morals, more refined in manner, more harmonious in government, and unusually bright in mathematics. Very intricate and elaborate problems are solved by these people of a few years. They are inferior to us in 100 ways. In the broad fields of manufacture and invention they lag a long distance in the rear. This is principally due to their lack of time. Religious life. The religious life of the people of Brief is, on an average, of a higher type than is found in our world. Their belief in immortality has run parallel with their existence as a people, and their devotion to their Creator is marked with unusual fervor. Their Redeemer is worshipped quite separately from God, and with distinctive adorations. The name of their Redeemer, phonetically rendered, is Kerm Sher. The most faithful translation of this word into our language would be God Affluence. Kerm Sher, or God Breath, appeared upon Brief full grown, and pronounced his benediction on the race, declaring his origin and the purposes of his coming. Similar to Christ, he confirmed his identity by unanswerable miracles. Many, however, disbelieved in Kerm Sher, and held to the old axiomatic truths. Thus creeds were prevalent, and they remain until now, only there is much less variety than is found amongst us. Kerm Sher set up a new reign and accepted a temporal throne for a season. He finally announced that his ambassadorship would soon cease, and that his followers would lose the throne of civil power, that they would be tested for a season in the valley of humiliation and by the fires of terrible persecution, and that they who would endure unto the end would be glorified. These religious features are remarkably similar to the system under which the Christian religion of our globe is fostered. End of chapter 20.